This computer. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me here on YouTube. I I had a feeling that people wouldn't really be able to make it live because I promoted this event 2 days ago. So I had a few signups, but sometimes like when there's not that kind of like fire there for a week or so, I feel like sometimes it doesn't really work out that well. Um, so I had a feeling that I would just kind of be recording it like this. So I just want to say welcome to those of you who are watching this from YouTube, or if I ever put this on another platform. Um, yeah, so the whole concept of this event is just to talk about how your vulnerability helps you to shine. It's to talk about the power of your vulnerability, this kind of magnetism that comes through when you live from the space of an open heart, which in essence is being vulnerable. So, vulnerability, the word comes from a Latin root that I can't remember, but it basically means to wound or to be able to wound. So when you live from an open heart, when you live from your pure self-expression, yeah, people can wound you, but you're also more open to life, and you can also kind of take vulnerability as a power. You don't necessarily have to show your vulnerability to everybody. I think it's more of living from that space of vulnerability where you're not afraid of getting hurt, and you live open anyway instead of feeling like you have to be defensive all the time, which a lot of us have been taught to do. So I hope that from this video, I think it'll be probably about a 30-minute video because we're gonna do a couple activities and I'm just gonna ask you to pause the video so you can set your timer for as long as you want, as long as you feel, as long as you need. Um, so my hope for this event is that you walk away feeling a deeper sense of clarity around how you relate to your vulnerability. So what I mean by this is that you walk away kind of being aware of your relationship with your vulnerability and not feeling like it's something I don't know, because vulnerability is even like a big word, right? So maybe it's something like, oh, I haven't even thought about this before, I haven't even observed this before, I haven't even wondered about this before. It's more about just kind of bringing this word and the concept behind vulnerability, the feeling of someone who is vulnerable, bringing that into your awareness and how you relate to that experience, if that made any sense the way that I explained it. Um, so basically, just becoming aware of how open you are to being vulnerable in your life, starting with yourself, and then how you extend that out into other people. So, the power of your vulnerability is to call in the people who deeply understand you and to find a sense of fulfillment in that. I really feel like your vulnerability, moving from a place of vulnerability, actually requires tremendous courage. And so that same courage pulls people in. The people who, really want to connect with you on a deep level can see you and feel you and and connect with you on a deeper level rather than feeling like you have to show up in this superficial way that maybe you've been taught to show up as. So, yeah, the first tool that we're going to work with in this event is creative storytelling. So, I want you to write a heroic story. I want you to create a character, someone who has struggled to be vulnerable, but then sort of, like every hero's journey, it's like they have a struggle at the beginning. Let's say they struggle to be vulnerable. Maybe there's someone in their life that they struggle to express their feelings to. And then they go on this hero's journey, which means that they sort of go into the unknown and they take something out of that from the inspiration of understanding their vulnerability. And so the idea of this is that you see vulnerability from this light of triumph rather than as something that you should shame away or push away, which a lot of us have been taught. I feel like I've said that phrase a lot. A lot of us have been taught this. And so that's kind of the whole concept behind it. And I want you just to kind of make it as fantastical as you can. Like really get into the details, get into the imagery. Where is this person? What century is it? Like take the time to kind of get really playful with it. Because the more playful you get with it, the more that through that process of play, as you surrender to that process of play, you actually realize a lot of things about yourself. So that's actually something that I wanted to share here is that when you write about another character, what starts to happen is when you read it back, you start to notice patterns in yourself. So as you're writing this story, as you observe these patterns, I would just recommend for you to feel to open yourself to that experience. You know, like maybe you might have sensations coming up into your body and feel like, oh my goodness, you know, this is intense. And I've actually had clients have that experience before with this tool. So as you're writing, you know, if you have to take a break, if you're like, whoa, okay, this character really does reflect a lot of things back to me, you know, just take your time with it. I want to just give you a few questions to kind of help guide you in this process. So the first question is, what happens when this person embraces their vulnerability? So this is sort of like the challenge that they're having, you know, like they struggle to be vulnerable. Maybe it's a person who has always felt the need um to show up in a certain way. Maybe it's a character who has always had to provide for other people. Maybe it is a hero of the valley, I don't know, of the town, you know, and so a lot of people look up to this person. Um so the idea behind this is to really construct this character and then send them on a mission to embrace their vulnerability. So what are the challenges that they face as they do that? And then what's kind of the happy ending? What are the benefits that come out of it? What's the hidden treasure? You know, what's sort of like the thing that this character maybe never thought they would discover? So that's the essence of this tool. Um, since this is a replay, just pause the video. I would say, you know, I would say pause for 15 minutes and give yourself 15 solid minutes to just really go into this. Maybe you could spend the first 5 minutes just kind of imagining and thinking about your character, and then spend the next 10 minutes free writing and just writing whatever comes down. I would advise against doing it for too long because sometimes when it's too long, it's like we start to overthink it. So when you've got 10 to 15 minutes, it's sort of like, okay, I don't have a lot of time to flesh out a whole story. So it sort of makes your brain function a bit faster and pushes you past the block, you know, of like, oh, but it needs to be like this or it needs to be like that. So you can continue to work. Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm not used to doing pre-recorded things. We are navigating this. So now that you've finished writing the story, you can continue with this tool for endless situations. Any situation you're struggling with, any feeling, emotion, thought loop that you're struggling with, the power is really in this process of writing it in third person because it's sort of like you mirror things back to yourself without actually writing directly about yourself. So journaling is a powerful tool, but sometimes it can feel kind of heavy, you know? It can feel kind of like, oh yeah, this happened and this, you know. So I think that the power of playing with creative storytelling is that you can actually basically do the same thing that you do when you're journaling, but you can add different elements to the whole thing and you can engage your imagination and you can write an end to the story. You know, and since your mind doesn't really know the difference between imagination and reality, you sort of show your mind like, hey, there is a positive ending to all of this. There is a lesson learned, there is a moral of the story. You know, this is what the character is going through. And so it sort of takes this problem that you feel so deeply entrenched in and it makes it like a movie, you know, it makes it like, oh, it's like a fairy tale, you know. And so as you write it and as you read it back to yourself, you're like, oh, actually it wasn't that big of a deal, you know. It's sort of like that healing power of storytelling when you listen to a good story and the main character comes out of this crazy situation and comes out like a totally different person. It's like, whoa, it leaves you impacted, you know. And so storytelling is something that, you know, is so deeply entwined into what we are as humans. You know, to tell stories, to tell people, hey, I saw this, I saw that, you know, to play with the imagination, to entertain ourselves, to entertain each other. to sit around the fire and tell the story, you know? And so this sort of connects with that calmness that a good story brings us, you know, that sense of safety. You know, I just feel like stories are so deeply intertwined into what we are as humans. And so and how we were as children. And so when we connect with that essence, that power, it's sort of like, yeah, I'm home, I'm safe, I'm held, you know, I'm gonna move through this. And you sort of take that moral of the story away and you write that moral of the story yourself, which is even more powerful. So, yeah, so when you write in for third person, it gives you the power to go deeper into the creative process and discover things about yourself reflected back to you in the characters. So, yeah, that was exactly what I had just said. um, so now we're going to work with the second tool, which is a movement practice. I'm going to guide you through it, but I basically put 3 points here so that you can sort of replicate this practice for other specific situations when you want. You know, so this event specifically is about vulnerability, but you could replicate this about sadness, about confidence, about whatever you want. You know, so if you are repeating this on your own without the recording, I would set at least 20 minutes to do this, because you're kind of moving through different things. So in movement practice, basically what we're doing is you're going to move as this person. You're going to embody this experience. So the first one here, it says move as someone who completely suppresses their vulnerability. And so before you even move as that person, just kind of imagine that person. How are they? Are they kind of tense? Are they contracted? And then the second one, move as someone who is slightly open but still suppresses a lot. So it's someone who's kind of between different worlds, you know. So maybe sometimes they feel open and really confident and really open to share, and then other times they feel like I can't do it. It was too much, you know. And then the third one is to move as someone as that victoriously vulnerable character, the one who you just wrote a story about, and where they got at the end of your story. So to begin, you can put on some music that you like. Yeah, you can do however you want to do this. Maybe something like an ambient type of music. I wouldn't recommend music with lyrics. I think it's kind of distracting because you kind of want to look at this as an active meditation. So, yeah, so just in your seat where you are, just first connect with that person who completely suppresses their vulnerability. Just tap in with this person. What kind of sensations do you feel in your body? Do you feel tension in a certain place? And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and begin to walk around the room as this person who completely suppresses their vulnerability. How do they breathe? What kind of breaths do they take? Where is their awareness as they walk and move through this space? What kinds of things are you thinking about as this person who completely suppresses their vulnerability? And just let yourself walk around as this person. Right now, you're walking around in the space that is your room. Notice the way that you walk. Do you take big steps? Do you take small steps? Do you feel confident as your foot touches the ground? How is your lower back? Do you feel strong? Do you feel held as you move through this space as this person who suppresses their vulnerability? How is your spine? How are your shoulders? When you feel this suppression, when you feel like you've got a lot of emotions living inside of you, how is the position of your body? Are you a little bit more closed in? Do you feel tight? So, as you're in your room, I want you to imagine that now you're walking through a city. There are a lot of people everywhere. There are people looking at you all the time. How do you feel being this person who completely suppresses their vulnerability, walking down the street? Do you feel defensive? Do you feel afraid of other people? Do you feel safe when people look at you or even make judgments about you? So, as you're walking as this person who represses their vulnerability, who's stiff, however you have been feeling like this person is, down the same city street that you're walking along, move as someone who is slightly open. Just open up a little bit more and observe how you're walking. Where do you feel that tension opens up a little bit? And just keep walking down this street. Notice your thoughts. Are you worried about what other people may think about you? And compare a little bit how you were walking before with how you're walking now. Become aware of what has changed. Does your step change? Are your shoulders different than before? How does it feel when your foot touches the ground in comparison to before? Take a moment to feel into this and become aware of this as you're walking, as you're moving as this person who is slightly open. Take a mental note of what's different. If there's maybe a word that you could describe, a feeling you could describe, a body part that has changed. Take any mental notes of these things. And begin to remember that victoriously vulnerable character that you created. As you're still walking as the slightly open person who still suppresses, just think about that character. Does just the thought of that character begin to open you up a little bit? Does the thought of that character make you feel like you want to change something? Make you aspire to move in a different way? And just keep walking as this slightly open person who just thinks about and wonders about that character. And you're still on that same long street. It's like a main avenue type of thing. You've been walking here, and there are still blocks to go. It's a very long avenue. And when you're ready, take one step as the victoriously vulnerable character. Notice how that felt. Take one more step as that victoriously vulnerable character. And just stand here for a moment between the slightly open person and the victoriously vulnerable character. And just kind of observe what the difference is. Observe this feeling of right about to move into that victoriously vulnerable character, to live that, to feel that, to be that. Notice what sensations come up in your body as you imagine fully embodying that victoriously vulnerable character. And you're here on that city street, just against the wall, taking a moment to contemplate, taking a moment to just imagine this difference. Now, without feeling ready, just jump into that character completely. Walk as that victoriously vulnerable character. Where is their head? How are they looking around at the people? What are their footsteps like? How is their breath? How is their shoulders? Give yourself the permission to completely embody this character right now. Remember that this is a character who doesn't hide their vulnerability. They're just a character who has learned to work with it, who doesn't feel like they have to hide it. This is a character who feels completely open to life, but also knows how to protect themselves. They trust themselves so deeply that if there were any threat, they could act quickly. And so that means they move through life with this absolute ease, lightness, confidence, self trust, freedom. This character moves without feeling like they have to control anything. And so just walk as that person. What are their thoughts? What are they thinking about as they walk? How do they respond? How do you respond when people look at you as you are this character? Do you feel safe? Do you feel open? Do you feel confident? And just keep walking like this. Keep walking, keep walking, keep walking. As if this street were never gonna end, as if you were just walking down Yellow Brick Road. It's just like you're in your element. You're not worried about what anyone else thinks. You feel beautiful. You feel deeply beautiful because you don't hide any parts of yourself. And so just keep walking. As you keep walking, keep walking, keep walking, turn around and look at those other versions behind you. Look at the one who is slightly open and tell them something. And as you tell them these words, watch them transform. Watch them transform into another person, a different expression of the same person, an animal, a flower, whatever your mind comes up with, watch them transform. Notice the power of your words in creating this transformation. Now that they've completely transformed, look at the first version, that version who completely suppressed their vulnerability. Look at them for a moment. Feel them deeply. What would you say to them? With the complete loving intention of your heart, what would you want for them to know? As you say those words, watch this golden light move around that person and transform them. Now that both of those versions are completely transformed, now they walk with you. They walk on both sides of you. This is the power of your radiance that comes from openly and freely expressing yourself, that comes from trusting yourself, that comes from this deep sense of connectedness with your body, with your feelings, and with the power of your feelings, of your body, of your struggle. You've just transformed those other versions that you were acting out in the past a few moments ago. You transformed them with your words, with your loving intention, with the power of the confidence you have as you are victoriously vulnerable. And so just keep walking with all the strength. Now I invite you to sit down, come back to the room where you're in, open your eyes, notice your body. What has changed? What did you see? How can you bring this archetype of the victoriously vulnerable character into your life? How would that change how you feel on a day-to-day basis? When you're ready, you shake it off. You can write down any things that you saw, that you experienced, that you want to remember. You can listen to this recording again and repeat this. You deserve to feel free. And those deep emotions, that shame, the mistakes that you've made, all those things that you feel called to hide are truly where your power lies. And so the power of this practice lies within feeling into your body in real time, opening up your body to explore new feelings, to close the gap between wanting to feel a certain way and practicing living it. So as you did that movement practice, maybe you felt like, wow, that was kind of hard. Maybe you felt like, oh my goodness, that was kind of scary. I wasn't sure about it. That's really the power here. It's taking the imagination, the fact that the brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality, and bringing that into the body in real time. So, as I said before, if you want to keep working with these tools, set a timer for yourself, even if you can only do it for 10 minutes. This Doing these practices alone, writing that story, doing the embodiment practice, this already shifts your mind into a creative state. It activates the creative side of your brain, it activates your imagination. And the more that you imagine, the more that you can live in a way that feels lighter, because you can't control your imagination. But your imagination can take you places and make you see things about your daily life that maybe you're not seeing. And so, another suggestion that I have is that when you find yourself overthinking and overanalyzing, that's a great time to work with these tools. And if you feel like you kind of need a container for it, like you want to start and end, just set a timer. That's a really easy way to do this. Um, so yeah, my conclusion here is that your vulnerability is powerful. It's nothing to be ashamed of ever. It calls in the right people, opportunities, and as you were that person, as you were that victoriously vulnerable person, you notice how magnetic you were. You notice how powerful you were. You notice how confident you were because there was nothing that you were holding back. There was no shame. You were moving through the world without shame. And there's such a deep magnetism in that. So I hope that you continue to work with this. Um, yeah, the lighter you feel, the more that you'll shine. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for participating in this. Um, if this is something that you'd like to delve deeper into, I'm hosting a group program called Luminosity. So my email is connect@unconditionalcolors.com. You can drop a comment on this video if you're curious about learning more about the program. You can go to unconditionalcolors.com/luminosity and you'll find all the information about the program. So this program is really based around the power of vulnerability to call in the people who truly deeply understand you and co-create with them. So using your vulnerability as a tool to find the people who deeply love you, to find the people who want to grow, who want to create the things that you want to create in your life, and who want to support you, who want to see you in your highest expression. So, yeah, if you've got any questions, if you've got anything about this event, about this presentation, just send me an email, drop a comment, and I'd be more than happy to answer. So, yeah, I hope that these practices were helpful in some way. Um, the more that you practice working with these kinds of things, the more that you'll start to see a difference in the way that you think and the way that you tend to respond to your feelings. So, yeah, thank you so much, and until next time.